Greetings and welcome back to Gadfly Academy. I hope that last week's exercise helped provide a certain amount of clarity as regards the things you find most valuable in life. Today I'd like to drill down a bit deeper into the idea of values, and in particular to clarify a distinction between human values and what I have come to refer as technocratic values. I have been tempted in the past to refer to them as silicon values, but I am not giving into the temptation. At one point, I referred to them as machine values, but I think technocratic values probably gets closer to the heart of the problem. It is the technocrats who prioritize non-human values over human values. And to the extent that we do as well, we give into the spirit of technocracy. Unsurprisingly, humans have been discussing values for a very long time. That said, unless one takes the time to consider one's values, the values that we hold can be taken for granted as being self-evident. The reality, however, is that many, if not most of the values that we hold dear have not always been held universally. One of the most obvious examples is that historically, and even up to today in certain cultures, the basic dignity and value of every human being has not been considered a universal value. This topic, what constitutes a human value, could be the subject of its own book. That said, because it would be helpful to have some kind of framework and criteria for determining what a human value is, in today's installment, I'd like to look more closely at what such a framework might look like and to provide a series of questions to help judge whether or not any given value can be considered a human value. So, since a comprehensive study of human values would take far too much time, the following criteria provide a distillation of much of the West's philosophical and spiritual traditions' understanding of what constitutes a human value. The first criteria is that of human flourishing. It asks the question, does this value genuinely help humans thrive in the long term, not simply survive? And does it contribute to physical, emotional, intellectual, or spiritual growth? A second criteria is human scale. Can ordinary people realistically live this value in their daily lives? Does it fit the limits and conditions of actual human existence? A third criterion is universality, cross-cultural recognition. Has this value been recognized or honored across different cultures? Can it be regarded as important regardless of one's background? A fourth criteria is its terminal value. Is it an end in itself? So, is this value worth pursuing for its own sake, even if it doesn't lead to something else? Would it still matter if it brought no other benefit? The fifth criteria is normativity and its guiding function. So does this value help people decide what to do or how to act? Can it serve as a compass in moments of moral conflict? Six is relational relevance, intersubjectivity. Does this value shape or improve how people treat each other? Does it encourage fairness, respect, trust, or compassion in relationships? 7, durability and stability. Has this value persisted over generations? Is it likely to endure rather than being just a passing trend? 8, integration with other values. Does this value reinforce and harmonize with other recognized values? Does it avoid serious contradictions with the core of human moral life? 9, meaning-making function. Does this value help people make sense of life, suffering, and death? Does it offer orientation toward purpose or significance? 10, orientation beyond the self, transcendence. Does this value point people beyond self-interest toward community, nature, or the divine? Does it connect human beings to something larger than themselves? 11. Practical embodiment. Can this value be lived out through specific habits, rituals, or practices? Is it possible to embody this value concretely, not simply talk about it abstractly? 12. Resilience under adversity. Does this value still matter in times of suffering, loss, or scarcity? Can it sustain people under hardship, not just in times of comfort? 13. Cultural articulation. Has this value been celebrated or preserved in myths, stories, art, religion, or law? Does it appear in humanity's collective cultural memory? 14. Moral depth. Does this value help people distinguish higher goods from mere pleasures or conveniences? Does it illuminate the difference between virtue and vice? And 15. Sustainability, that is a future-oriented responsibility. Does this value encourage stewardship of resources and responsibility toward future generations? Can it guide humans to live in ways that do not destroy what comes after them? And so I've taken these 15 criteria and turned them into a human values checklist because some of these criteria overlap a bit. So in an attempt to pull them together, the following is a distillation of these questions that we can ask of a particular value to determine whether or not it should be considered a human value. So here are 8 critical questions to ask of any particular value. 1, does this value genuinely promote long-term human flourishing? Again, physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual growth, resilience under adversity, sustaining well-being beyond mere survival. 2, is this value livable and embodied in real human life? Is it fitting human limits and conditions and able to be practiced through habits, rituals, or concrete actions? 3, is this value recognized across cultures, eras, and human experience? Universality, durability across generations, presence in myths, art, religion, or law, cultural memory. 4, is this value intrinsically worth pursuing beyond utility? Is it an end in itself, not just a means, retaining meaning even without external benefit or reward? 5, does this value guide human action and moral decision-making? So that is normativity, moral depth, capacity to orient people in moments of conflict and distinguish higher goods from mere conveniences. 6, does this value strengthen human relationships and community? So relational relevance, fairness, respect, trust, compassion, extending beyond self-interest toward community, nature, or the divine. 7, does this value harmonize with and support other enduring values? So integration and coherence, avoiding contradiction with the core of human moral life. And finally, 8, does this value orient humanity toward meaning, purpose, and responsibility beyond the present? That is, meaning-making, transcendence, sustainability, responsibility for future generations. So if a value passes all, or at least most of these tests, these questions, it can probably be considered to be a human value. Just a note, it's difficult sometimes to catch all of these. If you haven't already subscribed to my Substack blog, you can read the text of today's installment there. So I'd encourage you to do that. It is Gadfly Academy at Substack. There will be a link below where you can go to read the text. So that it is it for today. Before closing, however, I did want to ask you your thoughts on the criteria I outlined above. Are there other criteria do you think that should be taken into consideration? Are there other questions that should be asked about a value to determine whether or not it can be considered a human value? And finally, are you finding this process to be helpful in clarifying what should be considered a human value, and even for yourself, what your own value system is? I'm interested to know if this process is being helpful. So please share in the comments section, and have a great weekend, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.